Hey guys, I decided to go ahead and do another video, kind of an overview of crafting. I realize I already did a build overview, and probably should have done this first, but never too late, I guess. So I just wanted to go over some of the basics of crafting within this game. And the first thing I want to say is crafting is there's a lot of depth to it, and it's very complex. So this is not meant to be an overview of everything. And certainly, if you have questions or comments, feel free to let me know. I've spent a lot of hours in this game since I started picking back up after a lot of these changes, and I can again say crafting, as it really was before, but still is the kind of backbone of this game at this point. And it is what you will be spending most of your time doing. So if you are interested in buying this game, just know that currently it's really aimed at crafters, and it's very good at what it does for being early access. So with crafting, everything in this game that you can use or have, you create. You can create different versions, different components to create different outcomes and different qualities. So everything, again, that you use in this game, you will create. There are some items that you can loot off of some of the mobs, but by far and large, you can also create those. So it's and by the time you're fighting them, quite frankly, those rare items that do drop, you don't really need. So there's really two big things that you need to understand about crafting in this game. There's a lot of smaller complexities, but the two grand sort of ideas are tiers and material bonuses. Tiers are, as you can imagine, each time you go up in, I guess quality is a way to look at it, you go up certain tiers. You can go up to 10 tiers. Lower tiers being not as good of an item as higher tiers. And each and every item that you use can have tiers. And in fact, if you're trying to craft a level 10 item, you're going to, well, you don't have to, but you're going to use, and I'll get to why you don't have to, but you're going to have level 10 components. This all takes skill build up over time, and so there is somewhat of a treadmill and a grind. But I'll start with tiers. Let's start with tiers. When you start playing this game, you're going to be tier 0 in everything, in what you harvest, what you craft, what you create. The first thing I want to say is as you get going, the first thing you're going to actually want to create is some sort of basic tools, which are going to be knife, axe. You don't really need a rake. Knife, axe, saw, and pickaxe and a hammer are going to be the first initial things you want. Some of those, the knife, the hammer, the axe, can also be used as weapons. Because you're going to want to start being able to craft metal bars kind of right out of the gate. So you're going to need some of those components to do that. The thing that you'll look at is sort of, well, how do I craft? When you look at some of the items, actually, let me show you. If we go to weapon and toolsmithing, you can go down to workbenches, and these workbenches are going to be what is required for most of what you create. And first thing I'm going to say is, well, in order to smelt iron, I need a forge. Well, in order to make the forge, I need to have a bar of metal. How that doesn't make any sense. You can actually go very early, go to crafting, and if you go to survival, basic crafting survival, you can create a basic campfire or a campfire, and I actually have one laid out right here. This is how you'll be able to pretty right away start smelting copper. And you can set fire with kindling, and then boom, there it is. You can go into crafting, and now using this fire, I can come into blacksmithing and start making some base metals. So that's something to get sort of going right away. After you have that, you really do want to start making some of these crafting stations, because that's going to be central to making better items. For example, creating some of the wood items, you'll need a carpentry table. You'll need, obviously, for food, the kitchen, alchemy type things. And I can go back and just show you all of the stations here. So you use all of these to some degree. Sewing station for armor and so on. So tiers. So as you increase a tier, the quality dramatically improves. And I can show you an example if I open up my inventory. So right here is my current sword. It's a tier 5 sword. You can see the quality is 193. You can see the damage output of 120. And then the material bonuses down below, which I'll get to in just a minute, kind of what those mean. Now let's look at a similar swords. Now they're not entirely the same because this, as you can see, is steel, and these are copper and plated tin. But here's a tier 0. You can see on the top green bar there that percentage, 3%. This is actually not a tier 1 item. It says T1 next to it. You're 3% to tier 1. So just to be clear, but you can see the quality and the damage is 1 and 6 again versus a tier 5, which is 193 and 120. Even a tier 4. There's quite a bit of difference. Now, there are some subtle differences here in that this is plated tin and the other is steel. I'll get into that in a minute as to why that is important. But even the material bonuses, you can see, are different. So as you go up in tier, and again, there are 10 tiers, you're going to want to, obviously, that's sort of your progression. You're going to want to progress your weapons, progress your shield, progress your armor, all the way up to tier 10 if can be. I can tell you with the sword I have and the mobs that are currently in the game, there's absolutely nothing I can't kill. And I don't have the best armor. I have tier 1 armor for everything, which is not terrible, but again, that's pretty low tier. As you're crafting, so as you're doing this, I can take you through, let's say we wanted to make a shield. I can, again, show you a little bit. Let's see here, weapons. Sword. I need to be near an anvil or forge. I'll just back up. So this is going to be something you'll see. Every single item is going to have components like this. This is your basic crafting layout, and you're going to be able to switch components in and back and forth. So I need a blade, right? I want to show you before we get into material bonuses. This is you have two. You can see here, basic and advanced. Under basic, it's going to autofill things in for you. So this says use all. I can actually come in and change this. Let's say I want to make a tier 0 sword. Change it to only use tier 0. And so it's going to only pull in things that are tier 0. Equally, if I wanted to create a tier 1, it'll pour things that are in that tier 1. You can see what I have and don't have. Let's say I want to craft this. I don't have a handle. I can actually click through on the handle, and it will take me to the screen to create a handle. So in this case, it would take a shaft. Again, it's auto-filling in. It looks like it took fur. You can see that here. There's going to be a lot of instances where, let's say I don't have a shaft. I can click through again and get to branches. We can go back to, once we craft those, we can go back previous. So with this, what I wanted to point out here, which is very important, depending on what you're crafting, you're going to want to use different types of items. So the blade, let's say I was wanting to make a blade. Well, I can use stone. If I want to make a blade out of stone, I can also make it out of bones, or I can make it out of metal. Now, obviously, you're going to probably want to make it out of metal. But again, here, tier 0, it's going to pull in, actually, it's pulled in a steel bar. You probably won't have steel to begin with, but steel's the top end as far as combat. Let's say it said copper, and I didn't want to use copper. Well, how do I change that? This is auto-filled. You can actually go up to advanced, and this will show you how to. This is where you can actually choose what you want to do. It will not autofill. So if I click this, it'll bring up a box, and it shows me what I have. This is tier 0, tier 1 items here. So why would you want to do this? Well, again, it's comes down to material bonuses. So let me pull up the help screen just to give you a look at what that all means. And you can see it here actually. And actually, if you look at my sword, you can see at the very bottom there the material bonuses. Plus 30, plus 30, plus 6, minus 21.6, and so on and so forth. So what does all that mean? Well, material bonuses are going to be applied to differently depending on what you're doing. So the sword is the attack bonus, the shield is the defense. So those are going to be for combat items. So obviously you're going to want components of the wood or the metal to be more based in attack and defense when you're crafting for a shield or a sword or say your armor. You're going to want better defense. The next two are for harvesting. So you can increase the amount of materials you harvest or the quality of materials you harvest. So when you think about it, well, where would that come in? Well, that will be within, your knife for when you're skinning, for your rake when you're farming, your axe when you're cutting down wood, your pickaxe for when you're getting ore. Those are all harvesting techniques. So you're going to want to have that be increased when you're harvesting. And then you look below that, you have a quality, higher tier quality in products that you craft. So the hammer, when you're using the hammer, you're going to want that to be bonused out in order to get potentially better quality. There's some other, I think the knife's also used in some other crafting abilities. So you're going to want to be able to, and then the last two, the one's price, which really has no meaning right now, and I guess a little bit of meaning right now, but not a lot. And then health recovery, that's also going to be for crafting, I guess, or for combat. So there are going to be instances, again, depending on what you're building, where you're going to want to be able to choose a certain type of metal over another, or a certain type of wood product over another in order to get those bonuses right. And that's actually where you can, let me show you, if we go to just some of the basic metals. So when you look at copper, it will give you, we've got copper ore here. So you can see it gives you a 0.2 bonus to damage. Iron, 0.5 bonus, 10.2 bonus. You can also see in iron, the sword with the red has a -1. So that's not explained in the help. That is reducing the amount of repair that you have to do. So you can see here, I have 5.6% decay, basically. Each item that you use will decay as you use it, and the higher tier, the higher the material bonus in that area, and actually is the higher the minus value is, the better. The less it decays over time. Which is important. One, obviously, you don't want to craft a whole lot of weapons, but two, you can repair items, but as you repair them more and more, it actually reduces the overall quality. And then gold and silver are basically just going to be for price by themselves. Now you go to the alloys, so this is where you're going to really use more than anything. So silver, sterling silver is going to be one of the best for let's go to basic here. It's going to be one of the best for your harvesting. You can see down there bonus 0.2 and 1.5. If you go down to green gold, that's going to be a 5 on the quality. So that's going to be best for the items that you use for crafting. And then steel, I mentioned, is really hard to come by. You have a much better material bonus for combat defense. This is really hard to come by because of graphite. Graphite's really pretty hard to find. You have to either get it while you're harvesting, or you can forage it as well. That I'll get to. I guess I can point out more in a harvesting sort of tutorial than anything. But you can see where you're going to want to pick different metal bars based on what you're crafting. So if I was crafting a tool and I was crafting a knife, which I'm going to use more for harvesting, I'm obviously going to not want a stone blade, because stone doesn't really give me much bonus, and instead I would be going into the metals, and I'd want to be able to pick what I can. Like in this instance, it auto picks steel. I obviously probably would not want to waste a steel bar on the knife, although as you progress, one could argue that might not be the case. But anyways, early on. So that's a sort of quick overview on material bonuses. Those will increase as your tier quality increases as well, but you obviously want to start with a higher tier product or a higher material bonus product to begin with, and they are additives. So what I mean by that is, let's see if I can actually just demonstrate it here. So the blade will select metal, and it's selecting steel. We'll go backwards here. Actually, let's do advanced because it's making me pop back to green gold. So if we pick a blade of, we'll just do this, sterling silver. I have 4 pieces of that. So that shows you the bonus down here of 2 and 1.5. Now if I wanted a handle, see the spruce also has an extra 1 here to the quality of what you're doing right here. So if I select that, that will go up some. So it does have an additive effect, so you do want to take that into account. Now the twine doesn't really have any part in this. I don't know if I even have any made. I don't think I do. It's not really going to give you any kind of material bonus. So you want to pay attention based off what item you're crafting to that. Those bonuses. So that sort of brings me to progression on through. As you're crafting and you're harvesting, you're going to want to build better quality items. One thing that you're going to find is that in order to get the subcomponents to higher tiers, it's actually going to be fairly easy and fairly quick to do, because there's a skill called, let me find it here, this skill here, transmutation. This will build up very fast. So again, every time you're doing this, you're actually using a different skill. Every time you, and I can show you how crazy it can even get. So go back to our sword. So this is using weaponsmithing. Now if I go to blade, it's bladesmithing, handle, carpentry. So each one of these twine is rope making. You're trying to skill all of these. And I can show you how it takes quite a while. So I have, I don't know how many countless hours in this game. And when you go to my skills, you look at this total bar, I don't have much. And I've been playing for a while. So alchemy, let's see if I can find carpentry. I've done a lot. I'm only at 22, still have a lot of ways to go. Beverages is at 45, just from, that's pretty easy to craft, but I'm still, that's probably the highest I have. And that's still nowhere near max. I don't know if transmutation is its own skill. I don't think it is. Let's actually just look here. So, creating better tiers. Botanizing, alchemy. So you're actually just using some base stuff. As you harvest, you're going to harvest a whole lot, a whole lot. You can see my quests over here. This Grand Elders Gathered, 3,500 harvesting each. That sounds like a lot. This started at like 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, 3,000. So I mean, I've gathered probably well over 10,000 items. It goes very fast because as you're picking things from, you know, again, I'll get into more harvesting tutorial maybe later, but as you're picking things, you're picking 36 leaves at a time, 45 leaves at a time. So it goes actually pretty fast. But you're going to, and obviously to begin with, start getting tier 1 items. But if you want to transmute, I don't know if I have anything I can show. Let's see. So let's say, so let's say I have some leaves, and I have tier O leaves, but I want to make fiber in order to make some twine for a tier 1 sword. So how do I get tier 1 leaves if I'm not able to harvest them that way yet? Well, I can transmute them. And by here, I just have two leaves, tier 0 is selected. You can see I can change the value to how many I want to do. I can set it to max. And then I just hit create, and now it's going to create tier 1 leaves. And if I wanted to create tier 2 leaves, well, then I would use 2 tier 1 leaves. And you can do this with every single base item or everything. So it's actually, as you're doing it, you do it in bulk too. So your skills go up pretty fast. And getting a tier 4 iron bar is not that difficult necessarily to do. The difficult part becomes more in the crafting of final items, and there are some things you can do to get around that. Actually, before I get to that, well, no, we'll keep going with that because this will play in. So as you're using, so let's go again. I've been playing for a while. I crafted quite a bit. Let's actually go to my toolsmithing. So if I wanted to, my weaponsmithing is only 10.5. So that's actually not a high skill. Some of my others are probably even worse. So I have all these tier 4 items, but look what happens if I try to, say I want to do a tier 4 sword. Well, let's try tier 3. I'm going to try to find something for you where I can show a change in success chance. And it doesn't look like it's going to show me one that I can do that. Apparently my skill's high enough. Do I have metal? No, I don't. Let's just craft, set a fire. I'm just going to make 2 of these. No, I only have 1. Oh, I'll make 1 anyways. Well, that's still not working. Basically, as you're trying to craft higher tier items, if your skill is not quite good enough to do so, maybe, let me see. Actually, I think shield making might be a good one. Here we go. So shield making 7.72, that's my only, that's not a very high value. So if I wanted to craft a tier 2, well, right away, I don't, its required skill value is 30, so I only have a 36% chance of actually being successful. That becomes important because actually, if you fail, you can lose items, and if you're trying to craft something very expensive and you lose the steel bar that took forever to get, it gets very frustrating. So how do we get around this? So again, there is somewhat of an imbalance in how certain things level. Well, one way is to go into your character, go to your bonuses. So as you age, you do age in this game. One, you'll have generation points. So I'm at generation 14. Each time you have a new generation, you get points. Now those don't really do much for you for crafting. You can see them here. I've just been building hit points just for something to do. More useful is going to be our age points. So every time you have a new age, you get points. And you can spend them either in harvesting or in crafting. My argument here is to not bother with harvesting right away and instead entirely focus on crafting. Because again, harvesting, you're going to harvest a lot of stuff. You're going to be able to transmute that later too. There's going to be some ways around that, which again, I'll show in a harvesting video. But just keep in mind, harvesting is not really a big problem. It's going to be the crafting that's an issue. So as you're crafting thing in bulk, as you're transmuting, let's say you want a tier 2 iron bar and you have 100 tier O. Well, you have to do 2. So then you have to, you know, that turns into 50 tier 1 and then 25 tier 2. And each time you have to transmute each step. Well, that takes time. And that's where these things come into play. So my advice, how I did it, was actually to focus on crafting skill up first, just to try to get some of those lower used skills to level faster. I maximized that first, and then I went to a success chance because, again, if you go back to here, you see my success chance and it has a plus 10.67. So I'm getting a bonus to success, bonus chance, even though my skill's low. So that's where I maximize those things. And then I went to better products. So that's how to get a higher tier. Then I went back up to time-based things. So transmutation speed was my next one. And then finally I maximized crafting speed. I think trying to transmute 100 items takes 6.5 minutes. So you can cut that down and you can see each stage. So 5% reduction, 10%, 15%, 20%. And these all add up. So that's one way to get around this sort of slow skill progression within some of these items. That can still take a while, obviously. And one thing that I myself dislike, and I'm sure other people dislike, is the idea of, well, I have to craft 100 shields in order to get to a certain skill level that I can then craft a tier 4 shield that I really want. There is a way around that. You could do that, and you could sell those and use the money to buy some other items. There's not a lot of items you can buy, but you could do that if you wanted to do that. There's actually another way, though, to level up your items that can also then somewhat apply to some of your skills. I did not craft a tier 5 sword. I don't have the ability to craft a tier 5 sword. So how did I do that? Well, I actually started off by crafting this as a tier 1 sword. And then I was able to use, here, let me show you, improving kits in order to go up further in skill. So you can actually use these, let's see, improve kit for weapons, and this all pumps up. I've been using tier 2. You can use tier O, tier 1, tier 2. It just changes the how fast things will improve in quality. And again, when I showed you this, so this is a tier 5 sword. It's 54% to tier 6. And I don't think I can craft one of these real quick to show you. I don't even have a rune of improvement anyways. These require rune of improvements and then some other items. The runes of improvement you get from combat. You can also make them. So if you go up to your alchemy tab, you go down to runes, rune of improvement. You just need fossils and scrap metal. Fossils you can get from killing things. Bones count. You can also get them in the desert anomaly. Scrap metal is you can get 800-900 of easy in the city anomaly if you spend the time foraging. So it's fairly easy to actually create rune of improvements, and you can create a tier 0, tier 1, tier 2. These can actually be transmuted up to higher tiers as well. So once you have some of those, then you can come back and actually create some of these improvement kits, and you can see you have ones for tools, weapons, and armor. And the components are just slightly different. Tools and weapons are the same. Armor, you have to add in some cloth, which can be leaves, it can be grass, it could be cotton if you've been harvesting cotton, and then leather. But this is basically how I've done this, and let's see if I can actually just craft one. I don't know how quickly I can do that. Yep, I can use that real quick and create a shaft to create another shaft. There we go. See if I can create a blade real quick. I'm just going to use stone just to get this over with. You can see everything popping up here. Fiber. I don't have any tier 0 fiber. Let's see if I actually do or do not. Sorry, tier 1 is what I was looking for. So I only have one piece of tier 1, 2 pieces of tier 1. I can actually come in. I have some tier 0 leaves. So let's just use this as an example real quick. So I can actually come transmute, go to leaves. I need one more. I want to set this to tier 0 because we want to craft a tier 1 leaf. That's all I really need to do. I'm going to go back to tier 1. That's some advice as you're switching this. You want to make sure your tier is always correct. All right, so now that we've done that, I should be able to go back into here. And craft that, and now we have all the components. I can come in, set a fire because you need the forge, and we'll create this. So now we've created an improvement kit. Now if I open up my inventory, you'll see it right here. And I can use that for weapons. So I'll use it here. I don't know how much this is actually going to increase, but you can see it's currently 54%. If I right click, oh, let's not let me do it there. So let's go into our equipment panel. So if I right click, I can go to improve, and it will use that, and it will go to 72. So that's not bad, 72%. That just went up to 200 in quality. So that's essentially how I've leveled up this sword. I'll plan to do that with the leather armor I have as well, the shield I have, all those things. That's how I do it. Now I want to point out, I mentioned you can get some skills up doing this. I'm going to walk away from this fire because it's making quite a bit of a noise. Actually, it's raining and fire. Okay. So if we go back here, you can see that I actually use weaponsmithing in order to craft that. And so I'm actually getting skills up in weaponsmithing by making that. Same for tools. It's blacksmithing and armor smithing. So you don't have to make 100 different shields in order to level up some of your shield making or your weapon making. You don't have to craft 100 different chest pieces in order to get the skill to make a tier 4 item. You can actually do these improved kits, and it will increase your skill along with it, and then you can in turn use them to improve the items that you have. So it's sort of a win-win. Yeah, so that's sort of the basics of crafting. I guess some pointers. I think I already mentioned sterling silver for the harvesting items, the steel for the combat items, the green gold, I think it was green gold for the crafter items. The other thing I want to say for armor, you can get a lot of different pelts, And I would argue that the best pelt you probably want is a scorpion. And I'll show you. That is in the Desert Anomaly. So if we go into advanced, I can show you here. So each one of these are going to have their own bonuses here. You can see 4, 2, 4, 6. These are tier 1s, tier 0. If I go down to Scorpion, tier 1 Scorpion, 12. That's the highest you're going to get. Tier 0 is right above it at 6. The Basilisk is not far behind, but it's not as good. So for your armor, leather armor, that is going to be the best pelt you can get. What else? That's probably about it. Again, I talked about how hard graphite can be to get. Yeah, so that's sort of crafting. That's a very quick overview of crafting. I didn't even really touch on farming or any of the other things. It's a very in-depth game. Everything generally follows what I just showed you. This panel, this sort of quality, the tier structure, all of that flows within everything that you'll do. So, yeah. So if you have any questions, just leave a comment, let me know. And this is a crafter's dream of a game. You have a lot to do. It takes a lot of time. Like I said, I'm halfway with the sword, the tier 10. I do plan on trying to get it up higher, although there's really no use in that right now because I have nothing that I need it to kill. Everything that's available to fight me right now, I can kill pretty easily, 1 or 2 swings. I'm sure that will change as combat evolves, but yeah, so crafting. So the main things to remember: tiers and material bonuses. Those are the biggest things that have the most importance in what you're going to do. And the tiers can either be increased by using higher tier components, although when you finalize a product, it's going to be much harder to do, or by using the improvement kits that you can get through the runes that will drop or craft. Yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed watching. I continue to have very high hopes for this game. I really feel like it needs multiplayer right now. And there are other things it needs too, obviously combat being 1, an actual economy being 2, but the crafting is pretty dead on. It's pretty good. So hope you enjoyed watching. Thanks.